Hey friends, welcome back. Today we have a very special episode with Dr. Valerie Giangrande, who is a fellow Long Islander, and she is an optometrist. And I'm so excited to get her on because we are going to talk all things eye health, because I've been talking about light a ton on this podcast, but light has to go through our eyes. And so our eyes oftentimes are wearing contacts, wearing glasses. What about sunglasses? What about if I've had LASIK? So I get so many questions about eye health, which I've also had myself. I've seen my eye health actually improve by doing a lot of these strategies. I actually have had LASIK. So if you've had LASIK and you're wondering kind of what's the impact of that, you're not alone. So Dr. Valerie, she's an optometrist. She's been in practice, private practice for over 20 years. And in 2012, her son got sick. So she began just diving into the functional world. She was introduced to the work of Dr. Jack Kruse, looking for her own health answers. And so she started to learn all about these quantum and circadian strategies, and she was really seeing a change in her own clients. So she also became certified as an Applied Quantum Biology Practitioner, and she now works with individuals seeking help with their own issues with eye health and overall wellness. And you can find her. She has great posts on Instagram. She goes by Quantum Eye Doc on there. She also has a YouTube channel. And on this episode, we talk so much about all things eye health, dry eyes, cataracts, improving vision, people with sensitive eyes. And we also talk about the relationship between blood sugar, metabolic health, and eye health, and so much more. I love this conversation. You are going to get so much out of this episode. So let's dive into the interview with Dr. Valerie. Valerie, thanks so much for being here on the Light Up Your Metabolism podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. A little note of discretion for the listeners. Valerie is from Long Island, and so am I. And if you're like, where is this voice coming from? Like, my accent pops out when I talk to someone from home. So this is what's going to happen. So just expect me to sound a little different today. So just want to get that out in the open right away. So Valerie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and your story of your career and how that has changed over the years and what you've discovered.
Okay, so I've been an optometrist now for 20 years. Back in optometry school, I was in New Manhattan in my optometry school, and of course at that time we learned that it's really important to hide from the sun and do all those things. So I was very into wearing sunglasses and sunblock, and I'm pale, and I was fearing the sun. A couple of years into optometry school, I started to get kind of tired. I was exhausted. I used to really just collapse when I got home. I was getting puffy. I was putting on weight. My skin was a mess. And I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And I got put on Synthroid, and things got better. And I just kind of ignored it. I'm like, all right, I'll just be on Synthroid. It's common. Who cares, right? Then I started practicing and had kids. About 12 years ago, my son started to have some health issues. And it was very upsetting. It was kind of just neurological stuff that was really bothering us. And we didn't have any help from our conventional doctors. So, the pediatricians just wanted to medicate. So we ended up going the functional medicine route. And we saw some really great improvements. And I guess long story short is that I started to become more holistic, right? I started changing diet and supplements and did all of the things, and everything got better. Until I started to get my own symptoms coming back. My body hurt. I just didn't feel right. I was stressed. Everything always hurt me. I was just still going, and nobody knew. You couldn't tell. I still functioned really well, but I just didn't feel well. So I went to my own doctor, and he kind of said to me, "How much sun do you get every day?" And of course, that was amazing because doctors don't usually say that. But he was he followed Jack Kruse. He followed Dr. Jack Kruse. And I said, how much, I thought it was a joke. I'm like, of course I don't get sun. Look at me, I'm pale, and all the things. Found the information and just completely changed everything, right? You start learning about quantum health and how important sunlight is and how it really just does change your life. And it's so foundational. So immediately I start looking at sunrise. I do all the things and I feel better. I start sleeping better, and I made my kids wear their night glasses, and everything just got better. It's just amazing how nice. And it's also nice to have someone with really sensitive eyes not be sensitive anymore. It's amazing how quickly that happens. So I started to just start telling patients about it. And again, it goes against a lot of what we learned, and to tell people to start getting sunshine in their eyes, sometimes it's a little shocking, but it just is amazing how many things are beneficial from eye health, from overall health, for everything, just from living this quantum lifestyle. So it's just amazing. That was about, I'd say, about 6 or 7 years ago since I found that information. And then I went on to go through the Applied Quantum Biology Collective and learned even more. And it's just been amazing. All of that community is fantastic. And here I am.
That's amazing. I love that. And I am so shocked that your mainstream doctor happened to ask you about the sun.
Well, he was a functional medicine doctor.
Oh,
So he wasn't mainstream,
okay.
he was functional medicine, but even still, it's
But
just
even still, yeah, that
right.
extra layer. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
definitely some great intervention there. So, okay. It's hard to even know where to start because things, it's just, I have so many questions I want to ask you. And you brought up a couple of topics that I think people are already like on people's minds, like things like, if you have sensitive eyes and stuff like that. So I think we'll get to all those things, but let's kind of go to the beginning. Let's talk about the importance of exposing our eyes to sunlight at different times of the day. Like, why is this important? Why was that the recommendation that doctor told you?
Correct. Okay. So what I always start with is that, our eyes, our body is wired for sunshine. It's sunlight is controlling every aspect of our body. And what's amazing is that we need our eyes to make that connection from the sun to the body. And we have cells in our eyes that are just waiting for these signals of sunlight to actually send messages to the brain to set our clock. And it's just fabulous. So we're wired for sunshine in the sunrise light in the morning. When that sun is rising, it's just a perfect, it has a little bit of blue, it has red, it has infrared. The amount of blue light that's in that sun is enough to trigger our receptors in our eye called melanopsin. It's enough to trigger those melanopsin cells to tell the brain that it's morning. And once we get that signal, the clock in the brain just starts we start making cortisol, we start waking up, our digestion starts, everything in our body starts going through the processes that it's supposed to go through in the correct order, only when we get that signal. And it's through our eyes. And we can't get it when we're wearing sunglasses. It has to be naked eyes, which is really important to understand. And there's no UV in that morning sun, so we don't have to worry, but we need that morning signal. And then as the sun rises, it's always changing. So the sun has blue light, red light, infrared, ultraviolet, has all these different rays that are always doing something different for our body in the correct order, in the correct balance. So as that sun is rising, we need naked eye exposure to a little bit stronger sun signals. So here's where it gets interesting, because as UVA starts to show up, ultraviolet light starts to show up about 10 degrees above the horizon, maybe about an hour after sunrise. We need that light through our eyes. And when I tell people we need ultraviolet light through our eyes, it's a very frightening thing to hear, because we've been so conditioned to just block that ultraviolet light. But we have receptors on the eyes. We have receptors on the front surface, on the cornea for UVA. We need to collect that light. And we have receptors on the retina, amino acids that are actually waiting to collect this UV light to start making hormones. Thyroid hormone gets made. We start making neurotransmitters. We have dopamine that we start making in the eye, serotonin. We start making melanin, which is amazing for, being able to absorb the sun and all the benefits that melanin has for the entire body. We're making noradrenaline, adrenaline, all these different neurotransmitters start getting made in the eye. So we have to have that exposure. And when we miss it, we're lacking so many things. And then, of course, as the sun gets stronger in certain parts of the year, we start getting that stronger ultraviolet light, which again, we are also afraid of, but that's the only way we can really make vitamin D in our skin. And there's so many other benefits. And most people, when they go outside, when the sun's really strong, are wearing sunglasses. And I get it, because the ultraviolet light is pretty powerful, and it can cause trouble if it's, in the wrong dose. But when we're trying to make vitamin D from that sun, we have to have our eyes exposed to the sun, not directly, not looking directly at the sun, but our eyes need the same signal as our skin so that the brain knows what's going on. Again, our eyes are the connection to the brain of what time it is. So when I tell people to when we're making vitamin D, I say take your sunglasses off. And I know it's hard to hear, but we need that sun exposure. And then as the sun keeps, going through the sky, comes down, now ultraviolet B is gone, then ultraviolet A is there, and then that disappears. And then we're left with this beautiful sunset, which has a lot of red light. Blue is starting to disappear. So those receptors in the eyes are not really getting the signals that it's daytime anymore. So then we end up knowing that it's nighttime, and then our body knows to try to shut down that cortisol. We start to release melatonin in a perfect world of darkness at night. Melatonin lets us sleep. We have this beautiful recovery and healing overnight if we get the correct signals. Did that answer your question? I think.
Yes, it definitely did. So that is a beautiful explanation of how, throughout the whole day, all these different rays of light from the infrared to the UV to the UVA, they're all important for our eyes because the eyes are, well, not only because, but one of the reasons is because that's where a lot of the information is being transmitted from, right? To the hypothalamus,
Mm-hmm.
to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which tells the body what time it is and what to do, as you explained. So, what about for people who, like you said, have sensitive eyes? So, how do we, and the people who are like, I need to wear sunglasses the second I step outside. Like I
Right.
moved from New York to Florida and I remember immediately having to put on my sunglasses when I went outside and I was just like, well, it's just much brighter than what I, grew up with. So I just, felt really validated in that. So
Right.
what would you say to these people?
So what I always say is we have to start with sunrise. Sunrise light, when it's right at the horizon, is very mild and soothing, and there's no ultraviolet light to worry about for the whole first hour. I mean, until the sun reaches 10 degrees, we don't even need to worry about ultraviolet A light. So for someone who's super sensitive, start with 30 seconds. Really just open a window, stand by an open window, face the sun. We're not looking to, you don't have to look directly at the sun. You just have to really just be outside. You can go in the shade. It doesn't matter. The eyes will pick up the photons it needs. So you can start with 30 seconds if you're that sensitive. Go up to a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. We just need to stimulate the brain in the morning. So even if it's 5 minutes every single morning consistently to start the clock in the brain through our eyes, that's going to be extremely helpful. And then as you get more, you'll notice that you can handle more of that light as you do it. But again, the earlier the better because it's a lot more soothing. Red light is very balancing for the body. It's blue is a little more intense. Red is very soothing. Infrared light is fantastic. It's always available in the sun and it's really helpful for the eyes. And then when you get a little more sensitive to it or able to handle that better, with UVA, again, same thing. You can start really slowly. We don't need much, but just being outside, again, in the shade if you have to be. I'm not telling anybody to look directly at the sun. Go for a walk. Maybe pull down the sunglasses for a little bit. If you want to put them on, take them off. Just do the best you can to just slowly start. And pretty soon you'll realize at those times you really don't need them or you really shouldn't be wearing them. So it's same thing with contacts, which is a little interesting because a lot of people wear contacts and a lot of contacts will block that, not even the UV. It blocks the full spectrum of sun. So you want to be careful. It blocks UV really,
Yeah.
but it's changing. It's changing signals.
Yeah.
So I usually say try not to wear contacts first thing in the morning, and even at UVA rise if that's possible. Sometimes it's a little hard for people to do that because they're at work, but we want to try to take this pretty seriously because it has such a profound effect on the whole body that if we can just be a little inconvenient and get that sun exposure, it's really important.
Love that. Yeah. So the idea, I talk about building a solar callus, which is
Mm-hmm.
sort of like that base tan we used to call it back on Long Island, when I was
Yes.
going to Tobay Beach when I was younger. So that, just like we would build a solar callus, you wouldn't tell someone who's like super pale with Irish ancestry to go outside in the middle of the day, like, and just sun themselves. You wouldn't do that. Again, same thing with the eyes. So
Same
the
thing.
whole body, the eyes, the skin, everything is needing to adapt to being able to get out in that midday sun. I have
Correct.
a lot of people who have blood sugar crashes all the time. Maybe they have like cortisol issues and a lot of other hormonal stuff, and they can't tolerate the midday heat. So every piece of advice, whether it's for a tan, for your eyes, for your skin, for your cortisol,
Yeah.
the idea is start with morning, and then you gradually want to build that tolerance over time. And then you can also do that end cap of the day because they're sort of mirrors of each other. The
Yeah.
morning, as you mentioned, is more important because it's going to set that circadian rhythm, but you also get benefits in the evening.
Yes.
So we can start with those, the beginning and end of the day, and then go inwards and sort of fill
Yes.
in the gaps and get, expose yourself to more and more light, longer amounts of time, getting closer and closer to that midday sun as you're
Hmm.
able to tolerate it, whether it's, again, your eyes, your skin, your cortisol, whatever that
Hmm.
is. So,
I love that. Yes.
yeah.
And our eyes need the same signal as our skin for all of, building up that solar callus. And I love that. And that's what people, I think, when they're getting their vitamin D, again, wearing their sunglasses all the time. So that's important as well, to not
Yeah.
have, to get that same signal so the skin knows what's going on as well.
Yeah, exactly. So can you explain the sunglasses thing for someone who's like, wait, why can't I wear sunglasses? Like, okay, I understand maybe like I need to get all the light in my eyes, but there's other reasons for not wearing sunglasses as well, right?
So yeah, so vitamin D, for example, when we have that strong ultraviolet exposure in the middle of the day, our body has a lot of protective mechanisms for getting more sun. So again, we need that UVA through our eyes and on our skin to start making melanin, and without it, melanin is what protects us from the sun. So again, our skin keeps building up melanin, but our eyes need that same signal so the body knows what to do. If we're wearing sunglasses, the brain thinks it's night. I don't know. The brain just doesn't know what time it is. And the other thing that's a little dangerous at that time is that when you put sunglasses on, the pupils are dilated because the body's trying to get more light. And now you're not getting the correct signals because you're getting almost too much light at the wrong time. And the pupil response is also linked to time of day as well. So because as the sun gets stronger throughout the day, our pupils naturally will just constrict a little bit more to help protect us from stronger sun signals. But we put sunglasses on and now the pupils aren't constricting. So it kind of goes against time. It goes against the full spectrum. Body doesn't know what time it is, and we're not really upregulating some of those processes. The other thing that happens is that we have an amino acid, histidine, and our eyes need to have the same signal because histidine, when we get sun on the body, and that nitric oxide starts to help expand blood vessels and helps our body sun, our inner red blood cells, we start to make this histamine response. And we can only do that through the eyes and the skin when the body knows how much UV we've had, so that we start getting that pink reaction of histamine to tell us to stop getting sun. But we can't do that if the eyes don't know what time it is. So we need the eyes to have those protective mechanisms, and the eyes and the brain will also start making, and the skin makes uricanic acid also from histidine with UV exposure. But we really, everything has to be in tune. I mean, it's just this, we all have to, everything has to be the right, the same signal.
Yeah. What is that uricanic acid? What does that
Uricanic
do?
acid, it's a built-in UV filter that we make. So it's similar to, it's made in response to UV light. We can't really see it. It's not like melanin, but it is a protective device that we have to help us not burn. It's just an amazing thing. The body, when we give it the right signals, and again, building up that solar callus, like you said, helps us get more and more of that. So if we pay attention to it, we don't have to worry about burning. We can really get all the benefits without worrying about damaging anything.
Love that. That's really helpful. So the takeaway is that when you wear sunglasses, you're sort of confusing your body because it doesn't know to make all these protective things like melanin and that acid she just said, that's a long word that I can't remember, like all these things are there, and the histamine reaction on the skin to tell you, oh, I'm getting red, I should get out of the skin,
Mm-hmm.
out of the sun. The
Mm-hmm.
body is not going to do that because it doesn't perceive that it's as bright as it is. It's not perceiving all those rays of the sun correctly. So then you get this mismatch. Your body's not doing the right thing that it
Mm-hmm.
should to protect you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can burn really easily that way
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
yes.
Wearing sunglasses increases your risk of sunburn, which is, it makes sense when you know why that is. Like, it sounds crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, oh, wow.
Right.
So, we talked about the danger of sunglasses, and what that's doing to the eyes, but let's talk about how blue light so artificial light from bulbs, from devices, LED lights, headlights, street lights, they've changed
Hmm.
them all out. They're now brighter and bluer. And, we have screens. We're addicted to these things. So we're like, our light environment at night has really changed over the past several years, even. So, what is that blue light doing to our eyes? I can't imagine it's good.
Oh, yes. So unbalanced blue. So the LEDs, screens, everything that we're exposed to, like you just said, is just when we say blue light. It's basically a single spectrum, or mostly a spectrum of blue. That's the color temperature of the sun at about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So if we have these cells waiting for blue light in our eyes, when we're exposed to a signal that's a 12 o'clock timestamp for the brain, then our body thinks it's 12 o'clock. And unfortunately, there's nothing, it's never changing. The sunlight, blue light from the sun is actually not a problem because it's always balanced by red. It's going to backtrack for a second. Blue light is how we tell time in the body. And that signal of light is actually an oxidative signal. And that's how we tell time. It's okay. Because in the sun, red light's going to balance out that oxidation or that inflammation. Infrared light's going to balance it out. So we don't really have to worry about the damage from blue light necessarily from sunshine because it's doing what it's supposed to. But when it's unbalanced, we're getting that oxidative time signal. We're getting that signal in our cells, and it's creating oxidation, but there's nothing stopping it. So now imagine we're looking at this blue light all day long. So the oxidative stress happens in the eyes. What it's doing to the cells of the retina. I mean, as soon as blue light hits a photoreceptor or a retinal cell, it's actually kind of releasing vitamin A from that photoreceptor. And when vitamin A gets released from a photoreceptor, it becomes very toxic. So now it's just damaging the eyes or the cells. It's damaging the cells. It's messing with our mitochondria. It's destroying the energy cells in the eye, and the eye is full of mitochondrial cells because there's so much energy that we need to keep replenishing with light. It's also going to disrupt, if we don't have a lot of that healthy fat tissue, it disrupts DHA. It just destroys the eye if it's too much. It's just not normal. So you see a lot of damage happening to the macula. People who spend all day inside, their cells, the macular degeneration. When you hear about people who aren't,
Yes.
can't see as well in the morning, there's damage from all this blue light. So so that's just during the day. That's not great because then our body doesn't know to do different things at different times. And now you fast forward to nighttime when our brain is expecting darkness and we still have this unbalanced blue. Now it just creates even the worst issues ever because the body's just tired and wants to go to bed and says, I really, really want to release some melatonin, but it must still be 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So what happens? You're going to release more cortisol into the body, and that's where blood sugar becomes an issue. So what happens with cortisol? Our blood sugar goes up, our insulin gets messed up, we get hungry. We're not supposed to be hungry at night that much because we're supposed to get ready for bed. So it's disrupting, cortisol is going to disrupt all those steroid hormones. There's nothing stopping it. There's no UV at night. There's nothing that's going to balance that out. So now we're left with all this oxidation. So in the eyes, again, that's going to create issues like macular degeneration. I'm seeing a lot of cataracts in people, and it used to be, everybody used to say, oh, it's ultraviolet light that creates cataracts. It's ultraviolet light that creates macular degeneration. Be careful, wear your sunglasses, protect yourself. But we're not really outside anymore. We have people who spend, the last 10, 15 years of their lives indoors wearing sunglasses when they go outside and just exposed to blue light all day and night. And they have cataracts and they have macular degeneration and they have dry eyes and they have all these issues. It's not UV light. It's this unbalanced blue that's just so oxidizing and damaging. So, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest problems. And even there's just so many things that happen. Even diabetes, with unbalanced blood sugar. Diabetes has a really bad effect on the eyes. If it goes unchecked, you get bleeding in the eyes. The blood vessels start to kind of just get really weak and they can get leaky and you can run into a lot of different issues. And there's no real symptoms for that. So blue light, people will say, my blood sugar is high. I'm not eating carbs. I don't know what's happening, but I'm looking at a screen all night. So, blood sugar is going to go up just from that through the eyes. That signal is just so damaging for so many reasons.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the cataract thing. And, I have a client who got cataracts and she's like, oh, I can't do the outside stuff anymore. And it just feels so counterintuitive to me that like we lived outside throughout our entire human history. And like I know we live in a vastly different world now with all our stressors and our toxins and, emails. Like, our ancestors didn't have
Mhm.
like any of that. But it just feels like, how could something that we evolved with and lived with for hundreds of thousands of years be the problem, and the man-made stuff not, like, no one bats an eye. It's like, oh, got to protect yourself from the sun, but it's like, let's turn on all the lights inside, and no one thinks twice about it. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, so can you share a little bit more? So are you saying that UV light does not contribute to
No,
cataracts? How do
it does.
okay.
UV light can still contribute to cataracts, of course. I mean, it can be. I feel like in our world these days, we don't have that type of exposure that typically causes trouble. But yes, ultraviolet light, especially if it's anything that's unbalanced or too much, can cause trouble. But it's not the main. It's I think it's blue light more than anything nowadays. I mean, if
I
you're in
would
a
say, and
tropical,
also lack of infrared, probably,
exactly,
right?
lack
Like,
of
so I would
infrared,
say infrared,
unbalanced blue. Yes,
yeah, like, so infrared deficiency
correct,
with like too much UV, too much blue, not enough
exactly,
infrared, some sort of
right.
pattern of that. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. So not
Yeah.
getting the right signals. So if we're
Right.
chronically lacking morning sun, we're lacking the infrared, and then we're just getting burned and we're getting outside and getting all that UV, it can cause trouble. Same thing with blue light, all this unbalance. We need that infrared to keep our eyes healthy, to help us make that hydration in the body, to balance out everything, to regenerate our some of our photoreceptors are regenerated with infrared. Melatonin, we also need to regenerate photoreceptors. But yes, so cataracts, um, UV can be an issue if it's done incorrectly, but blue light these days I feel like is just a much stronger problem.
Yeah. So do you recommend using like blue, like good quality blue blocking glasses? Is that helpful for the eyes?
I think it is. I will at night. We have to wear the night glasses. I mean, that's definite. That's a definite. As soon as that sun is setting, I know we all have these
Yeah,
our night
orange
blue light
ones.
blockers.
Yep.
We want to make sure. What I usually say is after sunset, when you start to feel like it's dark, to wear them. But I also say try to eat first, because if you put these on and you didn't eat yet, digestion goes down because the body knows that it's nighttime and we're really not supposed to digest. So I usually try to say eat as close as you can to sunset, which is hard for people to do. Uh, then wait, then put them on until you go to sleep, and then you want to keep it really dark. Your bedroom's really dark because we want to just mimic nighttime at night. That's probably the most important time to wear these.
Yeah.
And of course, getting the morning signal, getting UVA rise, getting outside during the day for those bursts of sun, just to kind of keep resetting our bodies.
Hmm.
During the day, I like to if I'm on the screens all day, I'll wear the day blue block. Yes, yes, those kind of yellow. Yeah, exactly, something like this or that. So I do wear those during the day when I'm in the office all day long. I do try to get outside as much as possible, but there's also programs like Iris Technology that people do really well with because it changes. Is that what you have on your
Yeah, I
screen?
have it on my computer. My screen is like orange right now, so that's why I'm not wearing my
Yes, my
yellow
window's
lenses.
open. Yes.
So yeah, Iris, and my window's open. Yes.
Hmm.
So Iris Tech, she's talking about. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you can feel free to.
Yeah, so Iris Tech, it mimics the sun. It's as if you're outside. It mimics the color temperature throughout the day, and it changes. And it's a really nice way to keep your eyes safe. F Lux is another one. Flux is another program that can be helpful. So those things are great if some people don't want to wear glasses all day on the screen. I know sometimes they're inside all day. So those things can help. Opening a window, cracking open a window is really helpful. I don't have windows in my office. Honestly, it's a really bad situation when I'm in the office. So I will wear my blue light blockers. I bring a full spectrum lamp. So I have that next to me. I have a cover on my computer because I'm not able to change my setting because of our IT department. So I have just like a screen cover.
That's
So I
good.
try to do all of those things, and I try to just get outside. So I do wear them. But if we're not getting any blue, like we need some blue. We do need blue light during the day. So it's not that blue light is bad when it's from the sun. It's fine because that's what's telling us what time it is. It's just again that unbalanced blue that doesn't have any infrared and red. That's where it's damaging. So I'd rather I don't want people wearing them outdoors. Sometimes some glasses have that blue light protection in them, and they're wearing them outside also. And I'm like, oh, we need that. We need blue. We need that brightness, especially in the morning to stimulate us. We want to be awake. We never want to wear something like this during the day because that would make us tired. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we want to protect it, but nighttime is the most important time to protect as much as we can.
Yeah, so I always say when the sun is down, whether it's like the morning and you've woken up and the sun is still down, or when the sun
Yes.
goes down in the evening, that's when you want to put those glasses on because when the sun is not up, there would be no blue light in our environment. So we want to block that. And so you do that with the orange and red lens blue blocking glasses, a reminder that the clear ones don't work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they block out the wrong frequency that's not being emitted from our screens. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they don't work. And the other thing that I hear a lot, some people say, well, I put my phone on night shift setting. I'm like,
Mm,
oof, night shift setting is barely enough for daytime, in my opinion. It's about a 50% blockage. And I put it on night shift. I always have it on. But at night, I mean, you really got to make it red, right? You have your screen. Yes.
yeah,
Right.
mine goes red.
I do too. Yeah, exactly. And I show people that and they're like, well, I can't use that. I said, sometimes you kind of have to make sacrifices for our health. This isn't not the most difficult thing to do, right? We're just talking about light.
Yeah,
It's amazing. It's not like it's anything that really costs money. I mean, it's just really just getting our light right makes such a big difference. So yeah,
yeah.
night shift setting isn't enough at all unless you make the screens red. So I know some people also say, well, am I going to see orange if I wear those? Is the TV going to be orange? I'm like, yeah, so
Yeah.
it will
Y-
be.
Yeah. I feel like with my orange lenses, the red ones really turn everything like black and red as if it's like
Mm-hmm.
black and white. Some people do the black and white filter on, they go to grayscale on their
Oh,
phone, and that doesn't work because the white has blue. So you
okay,
can't do
yeah.
that. You have to go full red.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're wearing the red glasses, it really is like you're not seeing any color,
Right.
you're just seeing shading. But when you wear the orange, it does allow some greens to come through and your brain fills it in. I mean, I watch nature documentaries and I forget that I have them on. And then sometimes I'll like look, I'm like, some peacock is on the screen. I'm like, that looks a little off for a peacock. And then I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, whoa. And like the whole thing, you have to see how blue it feels
Yes, yes.
after you're watching that. Like you don't really notice it when you're just
Mm-hmm.
looking at a TV, but you really notice when it's
Yeah.
like when you take them off. So I fully agree with all these recommendations. And it's funny because these are the recommendations I make for people with blood sugar and metabolic health. They're the recommendations you make for eye health. They're the recommendations people would make
Yeah.
for your thyroid or for your
Right,
hormones. Like
right.
it is so foundational to every aspect of our health, and of course our eyes are no different, and they're like a part of our brain too, which is such
Yes.
a crazy thing to think about. So I feel like eye issues are maybe some of the first things to manifest that there's
Mm-hmm.
some dysfunction in the brain.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, we talked about sensitive eyes, we talked about sunglasses, we talked about cataracts, with glasses and contacts. So we did briefly touch on this as well, that like the contacts are blocking out certain things. Glasses will also block some of those rays from coming in, especially if you have those transition lenses, which I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend not to get. The glasses will block UV. Same thing with glass, like windows. Also, that's why we're talking about opening the windows because
Mm-hmm.
it blocks out a lot of infrared and UV. So, tell us about how to manage things with glasses and contacts. You mentioned a couple of strategies for the contacts, but maybe some brands of contacts that may be better than others.
Sure. So the as far, so we, when people want contacts, usually we do say that dailies tend to be on the healthier side because you're just replacing them every day, so you don't have to worry necessarily about the chemicals that are in the cleaners because sometimes that can contribute to
Uh-huh.
reactions in the eye. So we'll say, go to a daily as a recommendation. The only daily lens that's available without UV is Dailies Total One. And it's only available without UV if you don't have astigmatism. If you have astigmatism, there are no daily lenses available anymore. They discontinued the other brands or the other name from this company. They discontinued it. So Dailies Total One regular sphere and Dailies Total One for multifocals when we need them for reading. Those do not block UV.
Okay.
There's quite a few monthly lenses that don't block UV as well. There's Biofinity, does not block UV. Um, Air Optics Night and Day also doesn't block UV. That's a monthly lens. But I don't usually talk about Air Optics Night and Day because I don't like anybody sleeping in a lens because this is a lens that you're allowed to sleep in. I don't care
No.
if you're allowed to sleep in it. I will never, ever, ever recommend sleeping in a contact lens.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh. I had contacts from the time that I was 10 to 24, and then unfortunately I got LASIK.
you have basic.
So we'll
Okay.
talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, so oh my God, if I ever slept in a contact, one would be like up in the back of my eye. I don't miss the days of contacts, I will say
Yeah.
that. But yeah.
So, yeah, and the other brands, let's see, Air Optics, the same company that makes dailies, Total One makes a monthly, and that does not block UV. And I am almost positive that Ultra from Bausch& Lomb does not block UV. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. I have a list. I'm just drawing a blank on it. But
No
so
worries.
there's only a handful. There's only a few. Everything else, they boast about blocking UV. I mean, it's their claim. You know, we block UV. It's great. But again, for these reasons, we don't want to block it all the time. It just doesn't make sense. You know.
Does it, so do the contacts, you said they do still interfere with some of the other parts of the light spectrum?
So they can, but what I also find is that if people overwear them, and that's a big problem with contacts, we have oxygen issues. You know, so as much as the oxygen is getting to the eye, you know, people wear contacts long enough, and you can tell. I mean, it's just it's very rare, no matter how good the contact is, for someone to come in and say, my eyes feel great all day. No, they'll say, I have to get these contacts out of my eyes because they're drying out. They're disrupting the tear film. They're disrupting the oxygen. I mean,
Yeah.
so from that standpoint, that's not good either, just from the health of the eye. So I think the best way to wear contacts, because obviously people will wear contacts. I don't tell people, you know, people aren't going to stop wearing contacts,
Yeah.
is just to not put them in right away. Get your morning signal, get your UVA. If you wear them to work, maybe go to work without them and put them on when you get there. You really need to, if you want to get sun breaks throughout the day, unfortunately, the only way to get a really good sun break for the benefit of the body is to not have those contacts in, which is really inconvenient to take them out. I know it is. But again, if we want to make these little sacrifices and really improve our health, that's important. And then I'll tell people, just as soon as you walk in the door, take them out. Give your eyes a break. I see a lot of problems when people say, I take them out the second before I go to bed. Like they wear them from the second they wake up until the second they go to sleep. No time to breathe, no time to heal, no natural lighting situations. And I feel like that's where we run into just discomfort, problems, health issues along the way. It's just, it's unfortunate that that's what's happened.
Yeah, well, great advice there. I remember towards the end of me wearing contacts, I was getting like dry eye. I wanted to rip my eyeballs out. And so I know that a lot of people struggle with dry eye. And how does that relate to some of this light stuff that we're talking about?
Absolutely. So with our tear film is made up of three parts. So we have an oil layer that's on the top layer of our tear film has a nice layer of oil that keeps the tears from evaporating. Then we have a water layer and a mucus layer. And all of those layers are made by different parts of the eye. We have oil glands that make up meibomian glands, right where we used to put eyeliner. Remember we used to put eyeliner on that
Oh,
eye?
yeah.
That's
I
where the
just
oil.
stopped doing that like a month ago.
Okay.
Like I saw
Well,
some videos where it's like, you're a millennial when you still wear eyeliner. I was like, oh, I shouldn't do that anymore? Okay.
Well, that's where the glands are. That every time we blink, it pumps out oil for our glands. So not a great thing to do. So we need those oil glands to be pumping. We need the goblet cells to make mucus. We need our lacrimal glands to make water, and they all have clock genes. They're all related to time. They're all on a timer. They can be really affected by hormones. They could be affected by inflammation, and they can be affected by medications. They could be affected by so many different things that are kind of a downstream effect of poor circadian rhythm, just as a side note. And then blue light by itself, when it's unbalanced, so now we have an oxidizing signal that's destroying mitochondria in those cells. So what happens when mitochondria don't work well because we're exposed to all this blue light? We're not making all that exclusion zone water. We're not hydrating those cells. So that's automatically going to dry us out. And then it's just not working well, right? So it's just inflamed. Sometimes the microbiome can be affected in the eye. Just like we have a microbiome on our skin and in our gut, we need ultraviolet light to help that microbiome. We need infrared light to help with the hydration in the eye, to help our mitochondria. So all of those things that we're lacking just by getting these blue signals is really going to contribute to dry eyes. It's the other thing that happens is that because we get dehydrated, sometimes we release more histamine, and that's going to contribute to allergies, which will also contribute to dry eyes. And even just looking at a screen, we don't blink as much. Our sympathetic system is kind of activated, and we're just kind of, when we're not blinking, we're not refreshing that tear film, the glands get clogged. I mean, there's so many reasons for dry eyes, and it's rampant. I don't know. It's very rare that someone doesn't have dry eyes. It's unfortunate. So, but I will find that when people do start getting that morning signal, blocking the light at night, doing a few different hygiene, things on the computer, that it really gets so much better.
Now that we're talking, so like I mentioned, I got LASIK. And
Mm-hmm.
after my LASIK, I didn't have like 20/20 vision. And then I did, but it was like, let's say 20/25-ish. So it was okay. And I did get some glasses for driving, especially at night. And I now that we're talking about this, I also used to struggle sometimes to see some stuff on like a phone that was small. And I remember signing a waiver at like before I got LASIK saying like I understand I will need reading glasses after the age of 40, and I'm 38. So like I guess maybe a year ago or so, when I was, sort of having these issues, I was struggling to see a little bit, and like my eyes did feel sometimes a little dry. Like I couldn't, like I'd blink to try to refocus them, and I'm like, oh no, it's coming. Like like I have a couple of years left,
Mm-hmm.
and I have not had an issue. Like my vision has absolutely 100% gotten better. I feel like it's better than it was like even early after LASIK. Like I can't, and my eyes were consistently getting worse, like always getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So is that possible to improve your vision as well with some of these
It
things?
it is. It's definitely impossible. I have seen a lot of kids who keep getting worse every year. We try to slow it down by having them block their light, and also by giving them a little bit of that reading help. This isn't really quantum, but by giving kids what we call like a reading prescription at the bottom of their glasses, they're not forcing their eyes to focus so hard, and that can also help slow it down. But what also happens in general is that as we approach the 40 or so, the lens in our eye does get thicker over time. So it keeps growing, the collagen. And because it gets thicker, it loses its elasticity, which is why we end up needing reading glasses. But it also changes the way light bends. So I do find that people who are nearsighted will get a little bit less nearsighted and more farsighted in general. So I always tell people your eyes got better, and it's not that it's got better, but it's just shifting.
Okay.
But there are people who do improve, and there can be improvements for this reason as well. But I do find that there is kind of a shift where we start getting a little better. Yeah. And being nearsighted, it's interesting because I'm almost 50. And the reason why I don't need reading glasses at this point is because I am a little nearsighted, and it gives, by being a little nearsighted, which means we're not seeing far away, it does give you a little buffer to be able to read a little bit more up close without having to put glasses on. So that's kind of, not that
Yeah.
it's a benefit, but
Yeah, I feel like, from the hydrating effects, because when we're exposed to infrared light and when we ground, I mean, those are
Mm,
two ways that our mitochondria make cellular water. And so it's like hydrating from the inside.
yeah.
And so that's what I feel like my eyes feel more hydrated. Like I had dry eyes, and that was like I like had dry eyes for a while, and then it would like I feel like my eye feels like a better shape. Does it
Oh,
change shape? Is
I mean,
that
it's
a
just,
thing?
the hydration is going to keep its shape. The other
Yeah.
thing I didn't mention is that we have a lot of lymph vessels in the eye. So if we have that good exclusion zone water, that hydration, the lymph is flowing a lot better, and we're not building up toxins. So, so in addition to all the other things that I said about dry eyes, I mean, even just toxins in the eye, people who have poor lymph will wake up with these puffy eyes, and the eyes are watering. And, so doing all of the things really does help. It helps toxins flow. It helps keep our microbiome healthy. It keeps our tear film healthy. And then, inside also, it's going to help us with the jelly in our eye is more hydrated. We may not get as many floaters. And when you have LASIK, at first there's always dryness because those corneal nerves are cut, but then it heals. So if the fact that you were able to heal so well, and now you feel great, it's a good sign that everything healed nicely, which is
Yeah. So what is the effect of having LASIK on all this stuff? Because I feel like now I'm just like ruined forever. Like my light signal isn't right. Like what, so what's kind of going on in this case?
so with LASIK. And again, So we have those ultraviolet A, those UVA receptors. They found some that we have them on our cornea called neuropsin. So we have ultraviolet A receptors on that front surface of the cornea. So there is a thought that when you get LASIK, and basically LASIK is, slight shaving down part of the eye with the laser, that there's a potential to damage some of those UVA receptors, and that can disrupt our circadian rhythm because now it's possible that we don't have those UVA receptors. However, I don't know where those UVA receptors are in the cornea. I've looked and looked and looked in the research, and if someone knows, please tell me. I don't know if it's in the entire cornea because LASIK is really the central portion of the eye. So if there's UVA receptors elsewhere, then maybe they're not all damaged. And honestly, we have other UVA receptors. We have our skin has neuropsin, and we have ultraviolet receptors in our retina. So there's so much overlap, and I think obviously if you've seen all the benefits of circadian rhythm, then it didn't harm you. If you're able to see the benefits and you've changed everything, then I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. The other thing I do tell people when they want LASIK is that they have to be even more mindful of blue light, because if the cornea is thinner than it was, you have a slightly thinner surface to protect the retina from that blue light, because every surface is stopping light, or I should say bending light. Yeah. So it's possible that blue light will cause more damage if you had LASIK. So you just want to be really careful, be as
okay,
as diligent as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. And I'm just going to go with the belief that my eyes have regenerated and healed, and that they're going to continue to do well. And that by, with my light hygiene and, all these strategies that I implement on a daily basis, that I'm going to prolong, I'm going to push off that, need for glasses as long as I possibly can. I'm going to defy all odds of centralized medicine by doing some of these things, and we'll see how long it can go.
So. I do see people that actually don't need reading glasses, and they're 50 and they really could read. And I always wonder, I'm like, what are you doing? Because it's one of those things that I'm trying also. I would love to not need reading glasses at all, but a lot of it is the anatomy of the eye. But why can't we make it more elastic? I don't know.
Is there any nutritional recommendations that you have for eye health?
So for eye health, I'd say the most important would be DHA. Fat, healthy fat, and not necessarily. I used to recommend fish oil capsules all the time, and I kind of feel bad that I did that, because now I know it's probably not the best advice. We really want to get our fish, our DHA from the cold water fish, and then if we're worried about mercury, I love to eat like the smaller fish like sardines, oysters, things like that on the kind of lower on the chain that may not have as many as much mercury, but we need DHA. The retina is packed with the DHA, and that's our healthy fat, those cell membranes. That's what's creating electricity from the sunlight. If we don't have DHA in that retina, all of this stuff won't work. I mean, we need it. It's just DHA is a beautiful fatty acid that it just has so many electrons, and it collects light, and it really does take that sunshine and turn it into electricity. And without it, we really can't function. So DHA is perhaps the most important thing. Again, I used to recommend a lot of nutrients, a lot of different things. And now I hesitate because I don't know. There's so many conflicting studies with taking too many antioxidants. We do need some, our body knows what to do when we give it the right, the right light, right? The right environment. So because the body, the mitochondria in particular, work with reactive oxygen or oxidation and inflammation, that's how we send signals throughout the body. If we're always taking antioxidants to block those signals, are we messing things up? So there are some people with macular degeneration, we're supposed to recommend vitamins, but there's conflicting studies, there really are. And I do think that it's helpful. Lutein, those nutrients that we always think about for the macula are helpful, but I'd say maybe let's try to get it from our diet rather than taking it as a supplement, because sometimes they also add zinc, and they add things that can mess other minerals up, and you just don't know. So you want to make sure you're getting good minerals from the diet. DHA. I mean, obviously we're not going to eat McDonald's. You want to eat just healthier foods in season, really dense nutrient foods. I prefer, and I know this might be a trigger, but I prefer animal products, right?
Not on this podcast. This is a safe space for animals.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we know, sure. Right? Animal protein. Yes. So fish, animal, healthy fat, all that good stuff. And then in season fruits and vegetables. I think you will automatically get what you need if you're giving your body those nutrients.
Yeah, I love that. I actually felt like my eyes got a little better. I had like a little step up because again, it wasn't perfect after the LASIK for several years. I thought I could see a little better at night when I started having grass-fed liver, and that was
Nice.
potentially from the vitamin A. Like that was my theory. I don't know because I think that my whole life I was pretty deficient in vitamin A
Mm-hmm.
because,
Right.
what
Where
did
do
I
you get it
eat?
from other than liver, right? Like, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure
like
there's other sources, but yeah,
yeah.
that's great. I think that's a great thing. And I actually forgot that. Yeah, liver, organ meats are very helpful as well for those nutrients. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I took that in supplement form because I didn't want to eat it. But
Right.
I like it because it's a whole food. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like a supplement and then, I'm not taking it every day, but I did take it for pretty regularly for a while and saw that boost. So I felt like it was a good addition there. So
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So,
That's
is there
fantastic.
anything else that, maybe some mainstream recommendations that, certain eye doctors will make that you disagree with or that you sort of have changed your thinking about that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered most of it. I think the biggest mainstream is the sunglasses, is wearing sunglasses 100% of the time. It just doesn't make sense. What else? Uh, what's interesting, I know a lot of people ask about cataract surgery, and
Mm,
because when you get those implants, they block UV, and that's a problem, right? When we don't want to block UV, but you get someone who has a really dense cataract and can no longer see clearly. What's the other option? There really is no other option because unfortunately, the implants that are made, at least in as far as I know in this country, are they all block UV. So that is a little bit of an issue, and I don't really know how to get around that. Unfortunately, maybe that will change in the future. So I think we did cover. It's really, I would say that the
yeah,
sunglasses the most, and just kind of educating people about what to expect if they do want LASIK and what to expect if they are wearing contacts, and even with glasses, just how to pull them down and maybe not wear them 100% of the time, as long as
perfect.
you're
Yeah.
safe.
That's great. I really appreciate your perspective and covering all these, honestly, frequently asked questions that I get. I get these questions so often. So I'm really
Hmm.
happy to have had this conversation to provide a little more clarity
Thank you.
on these topics. So where can people find you? What offers do you have? Do you like work with people, like not in a, at your office kind of
Right.
thing?
So what I'm on Instagram and YouTube, but I have started doing Zoom consults kind of as a quantum coach. And I don't do eye exams,
Uh,
virtually. I cannot do eye exams that way. But for people who are really looking to help, eye health, general health from a quantum perspective, as long as they've had their eyes checked and everything's okay, then I've done consults. So I have links to that on my Instagram and YouTube, basically Quantum Eye Doc.
Okay,
That's what
Quantum
I
Eye
love
Doc. We will
so
link
far.
that and we'll link
Hmm.
everything in the show notes so you guys can follow along. And she has amazing content on Instagram, so you'll definitely want to follow. And it's a lot of some of the stuff that I talk about, but going like really deep into some of these quantum topics and like lots of, I mean, really detailed, like it's like master classes on there. So I love that. I provide a lot of, high quality free content on my page too. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that you put in to provide that. So make sure you guys follow along and, yeah, thanks so much for being here. And it was great to chat with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.